Who better to shed some light on this subject? Is it a mystical prophecy, or could it possibly be a cataclysmic reality that's knocking at our earthly door? Let's find out. Welcome, Dr. Rand.
Good evening, good afternoon, like your opening thing. Hello, America.
Hi, it's so nice to have you on the show. And boy, Jason, we've got a whole hour power packed, so let's get going.
Well, I did a little research on you, young lady.
You did.
And you asked some pretty succinct questions, so I'm ready.
Okay, let's get started. But before we sink our teeth into the viability of Planet X, let's talk about some of your background. How did you go from having a successful career in the music industry to morphing your total focus on Planet X?
Well, the transition didn't come easy. I do miss terribly the music industry, but it's changed so much during the years that I was in it. But I've never really been totally out of this Planet X realm that I find myself at the moment. My whole experience began as a child contactee at age 11 in the wilds of Canada, where my life was saved by an extraterrestrial craft, what we would call a flying saucer type shaped craft. And ever since that event and being on the ship and the things that they showed me about these present end times right now had cast me on that journey from early childhood. And interestingly enough, I tell you what, let me just let the story unfold.
There you go.
I kind of know what you're going to want to, and if I go too far, you ring me in.
You go right ahead. Take off.
Go.
Go.
Is your seatbelt buckled, everybody?
Yep, we're ready. We're ready.
Or not, just in case.
We're ready.
Right. Okay. When I was on the ship as a child, I was on there for about 5.5 hours. I was a guest. I was not abducted. You know, no funny business. It was intellectual. It was spiritual. It was physical. It was very humanoid.
It was not traumatic, in other words.
No. It just saved my life. And I was paired up with a child about my own age, an E.T. His name was Elan, A-A-L-O-N, Elan. And although he was like, I was 11, although he was like 11 and a half, 12 himself, he was far more advanced for his age than I was. And I knew it, and I recognized it instantly, because he was the one who taught me in less than 15 minutes. He was able to communicate with me how to participate in the art of what they call telemetrics, telecommunication, metrics, mental. And I began to learn the art of speaking through mental telepathy. So from that point forward, I realized I was not in any danger whatsoever. In fact, they had saved my life. And at the end of being on the ship, which was about a 5.5-hour run, I was taken to a small classroom. And Elon and I sat in these big, comfy leather, what felt and looked and smelled like leather. Believe me, I don't know what it was, but it was nice. We saw across large screens in a 180-degree arc, we saw a series, like a big slideshow. I'm sure you've been to a slideshow.
For sure.
Jump. The slides jump left to right and that type of thing.
Uh-huh.
I was basically shown the formation of the solar system, where we were in the universe, how our solar system works. It was a classroom, preparing me and setting me up to find out if I wanted to take on the mission when I was older, like I am now. We don't discuss age necessarily, but I'm over 60. Let's put it that way. Okay, what it was showing me what the end times would look like from the future, a future that hadn't yet happened. Or the question was, maybe it had happened in their reality and dimensional system, and they were able to play it back for me. I think that they had the ability to go forward and backward in time. In fact, that was demonstrated to me on a couple of occasions. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that.
Okay.
So what I saw at the very end was the formation of our solar system, whereby what I interpreted was that there were originally 12 planets, just like Zecharia Sitchin talks about in his 12 planets.
Right, exactly.
Okay. That there were, in fact, 12 planets. There was no asteroid belt. That became a byproduct of a mischief in heaven that I'll tell you about. And there very, very possibly was a small baby star that had been born by our sun. In other words, we had a binary star system in the beginning, not a single star system, binary meaning two. By the way, most large or medium-sized star systems like our sun usually have binary star systems. So about 80% of them do carry two suns. One, a primary sun, just like ours, luminous, in fusion, creating heat, light, radiance, and that type of thing. And then you have smaller ones, either undeveloped, which are called brown dwarfs, or smaller versions of the large star in miniature. They actually have baby suns. It's just like mama and baby, okay?
Okay.
All right, now, we believe that about 4.5 to 5 billion years ago, with these 12 planets and this baby sun, and there were some moons beginning to come together, we have to understand, first of all, Louise, that our solar system's schematic for the way it revolves is that all the planets revolve around our sun in a counterclockwise motion. We think of things, when we read the clock, look at our watch, that type of thing, or traffic flows, it goes in a counterclockwise. Well, our particular solar system doesn't. It flows in a counterclockwise motion. And about 4.5 to 5 billion years ago, a large errant body, probably a huge, almost planet-sized asteroid, or could have been another small planet, flew out from the depths of space right into our solar system. And we believe that it was probably coming just like a bullet out of nowhere. Now we do believe that it was traveling in a counterclockwise motion as it entered our solar system. So it did enter, but when it came in, it started mixing, and we believe that this errant astronomical body smashed into a planet, one of the 12 planets called Tiamat, and that planet burst into a big chunks and debris, and we think that the Earth may be the remnants of that planet that wasn't totally destroyed. Okay, we think the Earth could be what became of Tiamat, because Tiamat we believe was a fertile planet and had water on it. Another big chunk, after it smashed into Tiamat, another big piece of this asteroid-type body smashed into a much larger rocky planet called Marduk. And the word Marduk, incidentally, if you want to Google it up on the internet, has it's a famous word. It has dozens of meanings, most of them dealing with godlike mythical figures from the past, and warlords and things of that nature. Marduk. You know, the very words sound ominous, don't they?
They sure do.
Marduk. All right, so a big chunk smashes into Marduk, which pretty much pulverizes that planet. The bulk of it, the bulk of the pieces, the billions and billions of pieces, became our asteroid belt.
Ah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Which also rotates counterclockwise along with the rest of it. Now, the asteroid belt is between Jupiter and Mars, okay? Okay, now, another large piece of Marduk, probably the largest single piece that broke off, was cast off into space heading toward the sun. And all the Sumerian legends and all the prophecies and everything called for a new sun to be born.
Okay.
Now, it should have been true. That sun should have developed into a fully luminous, smaller version, but another secondary sun to our sun. Instead, it was killed instantly when this huge piece of asteroid rock from Marduk and also possibly pieces of the asteroid itself smashed head-on into this baby sun. Now, we believe that this baby sun, it was very possibly as big as Jupiter. I mean, it wasn't some small little tennis size, you understand?
Yeah, it was pretty large.
This was a large sun, not as big as ours. You understand?
Okay, so it's smaller than our own sun, but bigger than Jupiter.
Possibly the size of Jupiter.
Okay.
This baby sun, which means it's big.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's mostly composed of a metal core, probably molten, covering a molten shell around it, much like the Earth, and that it probably has a low luminosity, because what happened when it hit it, it basically killed it, and it hit it with excuse me, such force that it spun it 180 degrees on its axis, and it shot it off in a clockwise.
Ah, it's going in the other direction.
In the other direction, against the flow and the unity and the harmony and the electromagnetic gravity fields of all the other planets. That word, electromagnetic and gravity fields, is the key here.
Okay.
Now remember that. We're going to come back to it.
Okay.
Now, as it struck this little baby sun and basically, for all intent and purposes, killed it, it started out on its long, eccentric, elliptical orbit that could take as much as 3,600 to 4,000 years to complete its cycle, then returning back to the sun and then being shot out like a slingshot. Remember in Apollo 13 when they
Oh, right, they had to come back, and that's exactly what they did. They went around the back of the moon, so they slingshot back in.
They got their kick in the pants, so to speak, from the moon, shooting them back out in their orbital path back toward Earth.
Correct.
Okay, so it takes about 3,600 to 4,000 years. Now, why have a 400-year gap? Well, first of all, we don't understand anything about brown dwarfs, if this is a brown dwarf. And we believe it is, and I'll tell you why I believe it is. If it is a small, partially dead brown dwarf star, then its electromagnetic fields will be tremendous, and it'll be pushing a field of debris and pulling a field of debris.
So prior to its coming to us and after it goes by, there's stuff before and after is what you're saying.
In other words, as it's been coming toward us now, for, let's say the last 1,000, 12,000, or 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 years, I think, because I think this time the pattern has been changed slightly.
Okay.
Timing pattern. As it's coming streaking at us from the depths of space, it's been actually approaching the planet Earth from behind not only the shadow but the glare of the sun. You know, we can't, you know, you're never ever supposed to look at the sun with your bare eyes. You know.
Correct.
Luis, don't ever let me catch you.
Okay. Don't you remember in school? No, in school we had those little things. Remember, you had to have a piece of cardboard and everything, so you'd look at the box and not into the sun.
Exactly. So when this body returns, it's pushing and pulling huge debris fields. Everything and anything that it scoops up flying through the dead of space along its elliptical orbit. Now, what's an elliptical orbit? Okay, do you like to play Let's Pretend?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, now pretend I've just handed you, everybody out there, I'm handing everyone a foot-long rubber band, a nice long foot-long rubber band, and I'm going to ask you to hook the middle finger of each hand around the inside loop, and I want you to pretend you're going to pull this foot-long rubber band out as far as you can.
Good example.
Okay? Now, what are you looking at? You're looking at a rubber band that probably stretches, 2-3 feet out from you, and in a long elliptical course or pattern, okay? That's what we think happened to this small baby sun. It got hit with such force, spun it 180 degrees away from its counterclockwise motion, and it went out counterclockwise against all of the other electromagnetic, gravitational fields and pressures of not only the sun, but all of our planets and their moons, okay? Now, the reason we think that this event is going to happen is because of the series of indicators and pointers that 7.5 years of research have uncovered. I must tell you, my dear friend, that I read so many books I couldn't read enough.
I was going to say to you, this book is such a beautiful book, and you can tell that there's a ton of research being done on this.
The more books I read, Louise, the more books I had to read because they kept saying, and this book will tell you this, or that article will, it was like a never-ending. It's like an Easter egg hunt. For every book, you want 2 more.
But I've got to ask you, if there's so much material out there, Dr. Rand, why is it that they're not talking about it?
Oh, no, you're jumping subjects. Let me just finish about Planet X.
So right ahead, and we'll get to that.
I promise I'll answer that.
I know you will.
Okay, now, if we're right about this incoming body, they don't know anything about brown dwarfs. By the way, it's not a new subject. In 1982, as early as spring of 1982, NASA itself announced that there was a Planet X. I'm going to read you a quick excerpt from the book.
Please do.
Quote, in 1982, NASA itself officially recognized the possibility of this legendary Planet X with an announcement that some sort of mystery object was really out there, far beyond the outermost planets. This NASA statement appears to confirm those ancient 6,000-year-old Sumerian pictographic descriptions of our parent solar system containing at least one more planet the Sumerians called Nibiru, which means planet of the crossing. Since then, NASA has been rather quiet about X, which suggests that something quite mysterious may yet be out there lurking in our collective future. All the indicators are now in place to confirm X's existence, especially with the building of that billion-dollar celestial observatory down at the bottom of the South Pole. So only time will tell us as we approach 2009 in 2012. And maybe the Sumerians, the Mayans, and the Aztecs were indeed correct. Maybe there is a Planet X, and maybe it's on its way back, end quote.
Let me ask you something at this juncture here.
Yes.
Why is it that we can't see it yet? Or why is it that it hasn't been?
We can see it. They've already had reports of it. They're coming out of Australia and out of private telescopes or at the bottom of the southern hemisphere.
Now, what are we talking here, Dr. Rand, within the last 2, 3, 5 years that they're being able to see it?
I would say in the last 6-8 months, the first images are coming in. But
that's soon, okay.
But you have to have a really good telescopic array, and it must be infrared.
Okay.
Because this object doesn't necessarily give off a bright, radiant heat or light signature.
Okay.
It's muted, it's dim, it's murky, it's like dirty, rusty.
So it's hard to tell, it's hard to see.
It's hard to read, it's hard to detect.
Okay.
Now, if we're right about this, a lot of people, NASA, referred to it that it might have been like Nibiru, but they actually called it Planet X. Now, here's where I need to change that. Nibiru does mean planet of the crossing, but that Nibiru, that particular planetary body, is not Planet X as we know it. That particular body, described by Sitchin, was believed to be actually the 12th planet of these 12 planets, you see, that we were talking about in the beginning. Now,
because it is confusing.
It is confusing, and that's part of what feeds this confusion over this whole array of facts and information about something called Planet X. So now I'm going to take that one step further. The reason I call it Planet X was because that is the term that I find most used at this moment, at this time, while we're interviewing each other, is being used on the internet to cover a vast grouping of subjects on asteroids and Planet X and Wormwood and Nibiru and all of these things. It's all called classically Planet X, but it's not true. They're different designations. Now, the Planet X that I'm referring to is the one that probably has the most traction on the internet, that it could be or should be or will turn out to be a brown dwarf star, the little baby sister sun to our sun, okay? Now, how I linked all this up is quite fascinating, and then I'm going to answer your question about why this and why that. We believe that this object is also called wormwood, as described in
Revelation, right?
The book of Revelation, chapter 8, verse 11, and I'll quote, "And the name of the star was wormwood." Now, here's the key. Okay. Remember I told you earlier I was on the ship and I saw this whole class session?
Yes.
And I saw this collision coming with this body coming in. They showed me how this whole thing was going to unfold with this sun that comes in every so often and the destruction that it does. I saw our planet spinning crazily and possibly turning over, and out in center screen was this large red fiery object. And if you look, are you anywhere near the book?
Yes, I have the book right here in my lap.
Look down at the front cover.
I am.
That is the image that they showed me.
That's exactly what you saw.
And that's exactly what we've reproduced. Incidentally, the artist who did all of the illustrations, or most of them in the book, is world famous, Mr. Shushi Miyagoka from Japan and Los Angeles.
I just want to take a second here and tell our audience that this is one of the most fascinating books that I've had the pleasure of reading, and I'd like to put in a plug for the book.
Oh, please do.
Yep, at this point, why don't you tell folks how they can get it?
Oh, okay.
And everything, go right ahead and give all your...
If you'd like to obtain a copy, it's 342 pages. It's a Time Life magazine style format, nice slick paper, you know, beautiful colorful illustrations. If you would call 1-800-247-6553, that's 1-800-247-6553, or visit our website. Can I give them the website?
Absolutely.
www.returnofplanetx.com, and there's a little hyphen between the T and the X, so it'll be www.returnofplanetx.com, a little hyphen, okay? Now, if you want to get an autographed copy, call this number, 1-901-336-9660, and I'll hook you up with a signed autographed dated copy from the author.
You know, it's one of these books that I've had it for a few weeks now. You very graciously sent me a copy, and I just keep picking it up and opening it up because there's so much information in here that you can't possibly absorb it all just sitting down and read. It's not just a straight read-through.
No, it's not Reader's Digest.
Yeah, it's not Reader's Digest. You can't say, wow, that was a great story.
By the way, I have nothing against Reader's Digest. Don't get me wrong. It's just that it's not great big bold print, but
yeah,
it is written.
This is like a Bible of its own. But anyway, let's get back to the, you've seen this slide of the red planet.
I'm at the end of this classroom session, and I'm showing all this destruction, and then they come back and say, but, oh, well, you know, sometimes it's not always that bad, but we showed you the worst that it could be. And then it zeroes in on this image that what filled the screen in front of me was this image that you see on that front cover. And my friend, Elon, turns to me. Actually, he turned to me, and he touched me on the shoulder, and he turned me back toward the screen. He said, I want you to look at that image, and I want you to remember it. And then he said, because that is wormwood.
Ah.
Now, that stuck in my mind. Louise, it was burned into my tongue.
Yeah, that would do it, definitely.
And I did.
Now, you're only 11 when this is going on?
I was 11.
Okay.
And I was about 5 months into being 11 years old, so I was 11 and a half, okay? Now, I was born and raised Catholic, and we did not or were not really allowed to study from the Book of Revelation. It's just something that Irish Catholics
Right. I'm there with you. I was raised Catholic as well.
And I always wanted to know, and every time I asked about the Book of Revelation, I was told, you wouldn't understand it. Well, they were absolutely right. And I wasn't able to understand it until about 4.5, 5 years ago, when another author and I, who are working on a follow-up book to the Return of Planet X, there is another book coming out. What happened was that we kind of cracked the Bible Codex code that kind of runs through the Book of Revelation. And we found that if you take the events and read them backwards, like from the back of the book, even though they're presented in a different row and order, reading it from the front of the story, if you look at the events backward, and if you find if you then find where we are at present time, you see what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Keep going back until you go, whoa, whoa, stop right there. This is happening, and that's happening, and the stock market's crashing, and the financial incident, and the war and pestilence, and the weather, and the volcano. Once you find a place to stop, that's where you begin then to understand where you are positioned in time. If you want to look at it from a religious perspective, where are we situated during this moment in the story of the book of Revelation? And once we were able to do that, all the other pieces fell into place.
Well, also in your book, and I knew this as well because I lived in Sedona, Arizona for a bit, and I'm a huge believer and fan, I hate to use the word fan, but of the Hopi prophecies.
Yes.
And they talk about the blue star Kachina,
yes.
or brown dwarf. Is that one and the same?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, why do they refer to it as that?
I knew you'd be good at this.
Why do they refer to it, though, as blue Kachina when, in fact, when in this beautiful picture on your cover, it's red. It's not blue.
Well, it's something to do with the literal translations, but then again, there were several different aspects to this particular prophecy. And they also believe that there is a blue savior planet or a blue savior sun associated with it. So
okay.
I'm still researching that one down, but the blue Kachina, yeah, it is the same. Now, there are other interpretations of that, but the way you're using it, yes, you made a good connection. I'm proud of you.
Let me ask you something else, too, because this is bringing around to this timeline, this magical number of 2012 that we've all been talking about, with all of the different prophecies, with all of the different research, it is all converging onto the now. I mean, we're talking a short time here. How is it that the common thread is there with all of it?
Well, you asked some really good questions.
Yeah, I know that's a tough one, but that's the thing that I see. That's the one thing that I see through everything is it keeps bearing down.
It always seems to come back to that, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, now, remember I asked you to play the game on
rubber band.
With the rubber band? All right, now let's play what if. Another what if, okay?
Okay.
Okay, now, I want to talk about a subject which in metaphysical terms makes a lot of sense, called numerology.
Okay.
Numerology has been practiced. It's a science that goes back as far back into antiquity as we've had people talking about numbers and things, okay?
Right.
So the art and the science is not new. It's not necessarily embraced by all religions and sciences, but that's okay. Diversity is good, don't you think?
Absolutely.
All right, now, but I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to share something with your audience, which is quite interesting. Like I said, everything kept coming back to the Christian Bible and the book of Revelation. Now, I found much of the matching information also contained in all the other religious texts. I really did. A little different, but it all boils down to the same. They have a day of contrition. They have a day of purification.
Yeah, they're calling it different things, but it really, in fact, is that same result.
Right, and it runs consistent through all the written literatures and religious texts of the planet, even in these modern day times. So there's got to be something right connected to it.
Correct.
So I just couldn't dump it and say, oh, come on, that's just nonsense, right? Okay, now, talking about numerology. The date that everybody's concentrating on is December 21st, 2012. That seems to be the date, maybe a date forward or a date back, but I've settled on 12/21/2012. And all the research that we did on all of these prophecies and all of these Mayan ruins and all the etchings and all the stuff that we had access to pretty much spelled out that date. And what they said was that was when the sky god would return. The sky god would return. Okay, and they believed that they would be taken.
But that was from the Mayan calendar, wasn't it? That did this originate, or at least the modern day talk of this was based on the end of the Mayan calendar?
The Mayan calendar and the Mexican calendar read a little bit different, but they still equate to the calendars that we have.
Okay.
So here we go. I'm just a little dry.
That's okay.
Can I take a quick sip of water here?
Absolutely, you go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I mean, this is an honest interview, right?
It is. We are live.
You and I did not really plan this.
We are live.
This is kind of live, and it's rolling, and it's for real. Okay. Let's talk about numerology. The science of numerology is ancient. In numerology, every number has a corresponding letter associated with it. All right? In other words, 1 is A, 2 is B. All right?
Okay.
3 is C, 4 is D. On and on up to 26, right?
Okay.
Okay, now, so you can manipulate and actually spell things out numerically. Because
well, that's, of course, with our language and the way, our modern day language and how we have interpreted things.
Exactly. So it's kind of based on numerology. Well, we're not supposed to talk about that. Okay, now let's concentrate on the actual written date of December 21st, 2012. The date would be 12/21/12 if you break it down to the base numbers.
Okay.
12/21/12. Okay? So if you write down 12-21-12, 12/21/12, it reads as, numerically translated, A, B, B, A, A, B. A, B, B, A, A, B.
Okay.
Okay, now, pretend you've already written this down on your sheet of paper, right?
Okay.
Now, when you consider that the Hebrew language is read from right to
left, mm-hmm.
This date would now read different. This date would now be translated differently, right?
Correct.
Here's what it would be. B-A, A-B, B-A. And actually it's pronounced Ba'aba. Ba'aba.
Okay.
Okay, B-A, A-B, B-A. That's 12/21/12. Now, the Hebrew translation for Ba'aba is, Father comes, Father is coming.
Ah, okay.
Uh-oh.
Mm.
The alarm bells and whistles and sirens just went off when I put that together,
mm-hmm.
because in the Jewish and Christian religion, God is the Father.
Understood.
Okay, now, once I put that piece together, then it was easy for me to jump to this business of the rapture. Now, the word rapture never, ever occurs in either the New or the Old Testament. It's a rather new theological premise that was fostered during the 20s by a Christian minister, and it started to gain speed, and is now the tenet and the premise of many evangelical organizations and churches. Okay, now he wasn't so wrong though, and I'll tell you why. Jesus himself said that he would return in the clouds, everyone would see him, and he would come and collect his flock. Correct?
Correct.
No. That sounds to me like rapture,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I could turn it around and say, well, no, not really. But that does sound like a form of rapture, does it not?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, I'm going to go a little further here. We've got the concept that Ba'aba means Father comes, Father is coming, that therefore that we probably think that there is a Godhead or a God force or Jesus the Lord. Someone's coming. Something's coming. So if we go from the rapture to studying Matthew, and if you go to chapter 24, verse 29 to 31, it is quite illuminating, and I'm going to quote one more time. Matthew 24:31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. That sounds like rapture. Somebody's coming for me.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If I'm one of the chosen ones.
Exactly.
If not.
You know what I want to ask you, because this hour
where I'm going with
this hour is going to go by way too fast, and I want to get to some of the meat and potatoes about what was in the book here, because I think this is what my listeners would love to hear from you. You talk about some pretty unsettling events that may occur. You put them into 3 phases. What are they, and what do you believe is going to happen?
Well, I believe that this incoming body is going to make its effects drastically known by at least midsummer of this next year.
2009.
2009. I think it's
we talked about that off the air. Mm-hmm.
Its first inbound pass coming up from behind the sun, up under the plane of the ecliptic of the solar system, and when it creates its second arc, it's then going to be coming up and over. Now, I'm hoping that this pass will not come through the solar system. I believe that the research indicates that sometimes it does go directly through the solar system between the asteroid belt and Jupiter, and it could cause all kinds of really major problems. So that's the kind that turns the planet over and spins everybody in different directions. Now, I don't think this one's going to be that way, because if it was, I think we would have had a lot more destruction a lot sooner.
So you're saying that it has some flux? There is some flux in this elliptical orbit?
I wouldn't use the word flux, but I think that it varies sometimes in its absolute trajectory due to forces that may be deflecting it. Don't forget, it can be deflected also because all the electromagnetic gravitational waves from all the other planets affect it, just like it affects all of the solar system.
Like the butterfly effect.
Yes, exactly. Now, where I'm going with this is real simple. we could get just a nasty glancing blow. And this is what I'm hoping and praying for. Now, the current weather systems that are plaguing the planet are not very nice, and they're very exaggerated.
But I think Mother Earth has been doing that throughout time. And are we going to blame that on this every 3,600 years? Or are we going to, just say Mother Earth does this anyway?
Well, it's definitely cyclical. But
okay.
In this particular situation, I think that what we're dealing with are a series of events that we cannot control their destiny. I think that we are at the end of times as called for by Scripture and prophecy and all these other telltale events.
Are you saying that humanity cannot change the course of these events with mass consciousness? Are you of that belief that there's nothing we can do about that? I mean, I don't want to sound gloom and doomish here.
No.
I don't believe in that because I think mass consciousness can help.
It's a great question, and I do believe in a very positive attitude toward global consciousness. I'm just afraid that the planet may be a little too far gone to get its consciousness balanced back.
By the time we need to have it.
By the time we need to have it.
Wasn't that what we're trying to do, is bring the awareness? That's why we're doing programs like this, to bring awareness in the hopes that can wake some people up and help them to get their mass consciousness in a better place? Oh,
absolutely, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in all of the metaphysical approaches to the problem. And this is not doom and gloom, it's just reality. All I have to do is look around me and I suddenly realize, wow, we're not prepared for anything coming at us. We barely survived Ike.
For sure.
Barely.
That's a very true statement. Mm-hmm. We had preparation for that, but still.
We were prepared. It pummeled us all the way up into the East Coast, up into Maine, for Pete's sake. It's like it terrorized us. Now, the point is, didn't write the book to scare everybody. Didn't write the book. It's not where everybody's going to die and we're going to live in caves. No, that is not what I'm saying. That is not what the book says. What the book says is that we need to be aware, first of all, that we even have the problem.
Right. It's bringing the awareness that this is out there.
Absolutely. And if we think we got problems with the stock market and bailing banks out and a nasty, by the way, we're only halfway through this hurricane season, so we're not off the hook yet.
Right.
So
we have bigger fish to fry.
We're going to have a huge, big red fish to fry, or it could fry us. Okay. So the point is that what we need to do is start talking about it like you and I are doing. I'd like everyone to get a copy. I'd love to sell, I'd love to sell a bunch of books. It's not about selling the book. It's about getting the information out.
And letting them discern for themselves.
Just to write a book. How else can I do it?
Exactly.
And it's available ebook. Now, once you get the book, now you're charged with the responsibility of the knowledge that it gives you about what you're going to do about it. Are you going to waste the knowledge? Are you going to pass it on? Which is what I'm asking. I'm asking everyone who reads the book to be sure at least 2 other people in their family are exposed to the book.
Well, something, one of the quotes in there that really got me, and I jotted it down because I thought it was worth mentioning, was, I think it was President Ronald Reagan who stated, perhaps we need some outside universal threat to recognize our common bond.
Yes.
I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah, he was actually talking about several different things. One of them was an ET invasion. One of them, I think, was this visitor from space. And one of them was some kind of an implied threat by alien technology.
I want to ask you about the alien, your contact with them, Dr. Rand. You talked about 11 years old having that experience. Do you still have it, or did you continue to have teachings or classrooms with our galactic friends there, or when did that stop, or was it a one-shot deal for you?
Yes.
Yes, it continues?
Yes. All of the above.
Okay.
Now, not in exactly the same format as I experienced it as a child. However, I have been in contact, still am. This book was written with a lot of research and intelligence and guidance provided by an extraterrestrial force. You'll notice that the entire book takes the subject very seriously. This is not a ha, ho, ho.
Yeah, there's no levity here.
Tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, they're going to land on the White House lawn. Sure.
Right.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. Would you, knowing what could happen to you if you landed on the White House lawn,
yeah, we're the hostile ones.
Any idea how you'd be blown off your rocker?
Yeah, we're the hostile ones.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to sit down and say, oh, listen, I'd love to talk with you. Yeah, sure.
We have trouble with different parts of our own planet, let alone, yeah, I can understand that. I want to ask you, too, because time is going to just get away from us here. You moved yourself to an area you believe will provide you with the best opportunity to survive. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the possible changes of Earth, and why you moved yourself where you are.
I think that anyone living near a seacoast, that you and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, I live in Sarasota. I am on the coast.
You need to rethink your position and where you live. If Katrina and Ike and Rita and David and Roger, and I can go on and on and on and on and on, there have been over 40 hurricanes that have devastated the Gulf Coast states over the last 100 years. The point of the matter is, do not live near a large body of water or necessarily a big river, and here I am less than 25 miles from the mighty Mississippi, but we'll go into that later. I believe that if you're near a seacoast, you move inland. If you're in a low area, you go to a higher area.
How far inland are we talking, Dr. Rand?
I'd say at least 75 to 100 miles would be the barest minimum if the worst develops where there are large tidal waves. Did you see Deep Impact?
Yes, I did actually.
Remember that wave that
I sure do.
in on that reporter and her father?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure was real, and that's exactly
and that's
the
what
kind
you
of thing.
think is going to happen is if it's
as worse, if it's as bad as it could be. I'm not saying it's going to be.
But is it debris that's going to be coming from our skies as a result of what this is pushing and pulling with it that's going to fall into our atmosphere? What is going to cause this?
It is known that there could be hot meteorite-type rocks falling. In fact, our research indicated that the times when it came back, there were vast patterns of devastation by fire and burning rock. We believe the last time it came back was in the year 1447 BCE, about 3,460 years ago. And that's when Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt under Pharaoh's rule.
Oh.
And that would explain all of the miracles, all the things that happened when Moses cast his rod, all the pestilence and the sun stopping and the earth tilting and the firstborn dying and the rivers turning blood. All of these are manifestations of what we call Planet X or wormwood.
Well, that's what they're talking about. That's the first, when I first became aware of any of this topic, it was the planet shift. It was global warming and the planet shifting, the poles shifting. It was before we started talking about Planet X or any of that. So that was...
Pole shift would be the super, super extreme. That's big trouble. That would take 2 shows.
I know.
Okay.
And you know something I wanted to ask you too, because I wanted your opinion on this. I asked a lot of other guests about it. Nobody's really had any kind of satisfactory answer because it bothers me terribly about the chemtrails, which are man-made. They are so in our face, but they're being ignored. Is that weather control, or is that, do you have any opinion on that? I mean, we've got a lot of things going on astronomically, but we have things going on here too that people are concerned about. Is that friend or foe? What is the chemtrail?
I find it's probably 50-50. I think there's some experimentation going on. I think some of it is natural phenomena. I think that the planetary climatary status is changing. I think they're trying to figure out what's going on. I wouldn't put a really bad conspiratorial view on
Spin on it, okay.
I think you should keep it reasonable. I find in this business is so nuts, Louise.
Yeah, it is.
Either you're all one way or you're all the other. You're a solid Republican, and I hate the Democrat. I hate.
Well, it's hard to know,
or
too. It's
scientifically, you're one end of the zone or other. Oh, there's no such thing as UFOs. How stupid.
Well, there's a lot of disinformation out there, too.
Yeah,
Dr. Rand, we're getting so bombarded on the internet in particular with information, it's hard to know what's what.
Believe me, the government and everyone in power on the planet knows exactly what's going on. There are committees and upon committees, and there are layers upon layers and layers of...
Are they afraid of panic? Is that why they're not giving it out? But,
yes.
But wouldn't it...
Because there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. There is nothing you could do. What could they do about Houston? Nothing. What could they do in New Orleans? Nothing.
Well, the information about preparation, which is just what we're doing here tonight, we're giving out information for preparation as much as you can prepare for something.
Each state needs its own preparedness center, and each state needs to take this very seriously. I live in Mississippi. I'm about 335 miles northwest of the coast, and I feel effects even where I live from winds and rain, and we had a tornado came through. I had the most unique experience, and I know time's getting real short here.
No, go right ahead.
I did a stupid thing. Our town got hit with a series of tornadoes. Now it's got to have been about 6-8 months ago, and it was early April. I do remember that, and there had been warnings all afternoon. The weather was awful, rain and wind and hail. It was just awful, and then it got really, really, really quiet. So everybody went inside, and it was just then that we felt, well, everything probably passed by okay. Well, it hadn't. 20 minutes later, all of a sudden the winds came back, and I could hear the roof shingles lifting up and slapping down on the roof of the house. It was very, very discerning. I mean, it was like, whoa, what is that? So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to go out there and get to the source of this, right? Well, I got to the front door. My front door pulls in. I could barely opened the door because of the vacuum.
Oh.
As it turned out, the tornado was only 150 to 200 feet above my house,
Right there.
turning on its axis, heading for the warehouse area.
Wow.
Had it kept coming, it would have probably settled down right on top of me.
That's amazing.
And I saw it because when I finally got the door open and I go out, and it almost sucked me out, I had to grab on to a porch and a railing that we had there. And just as I'm trying to figure out how to get back in the house, it hit. You know what an electrical relay substation is, where they have all the breakdowns?
Oh, absolutely.
From big power to smaller power to smaller
Right.
power and into the houses?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this tornado, that was the first thing it touched down on.
Oh, for heaven's
It
sake.
took out all the electric grid, and of course,
Right,
we were
right.
immediately in the dark. But when it hit it and blew it up, it sent up a huge, huge glow, like a million Roman candles, and it lasted for about 6-8 seconds. And just then, I look up from under my porch, and that's where I saw the tornado. It was so big it covered 2 or 3 blocks.
Oh.
Do you remember Twister?
Oh, yeah, that was a great movie.
Do you remember the scene with the debris flying around and stuff was falling?
Right.
Stuff was falling all over the place, banging on my roof, the sleet, and it was howling, and I barely made it back inside the house.
Now, are you, and you must be in a low-lying area?
No, I'm
Oh.
I'm in a normally high area. I live about 400 feet above sea level.
Okay, that's rare. That's
Yeah, so
rare.
I'm about 320 feet above the river level.
What can we tell our listeners? What can they do right now to prepare themselves without panic?
Right.
You know, what are your recommendations here? Because we don't want, you know, obviously everybody isn't going to do a mass exodus from the coast. I mean, don't you remember?
But we're not recommending that either.
Yeah, but remember in 2000 when the new millennium was coming in, there was a panic state, things changing. I remember some people I knew casually that up and left Florida and they moved to Wyoming because they needed to get away from the coast, and then of course absolutely nothing happened. Well, that was a good thing. But so we don't want to scare them, but we don't want to poo-poo this either. So
No,
what can we do that's intelligent and not panicking?
Number one, take stock of who you are and where you are and why you are.
Okay.
Become aware of who you are. In this time, on this date, we live at a very exciting time to be alive, Louise.
I agree with that.
Changes to this planet that no man has ever seen before. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to take stock of your family. Knowing all about yourself and having yourself secure is one thing. If you have a family, you have a wife, children, you have relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles, you need to put a family plan together, just like they say in FEMA. Then you have to instruct everybody on the worst that could happen. If nobody knows that the tree is going to fall on a house, it's all the worse when the tree falls on the house and kills everybody.
If this is such a withheld subject matter, other than you and I having this discussion tonight and having your book out there, it's not something that's on mainstream television. So to even broach my own family with what you and I are talking about tonight, they're going to get ready for a white jacket for me. You know, they're going to.
Well, it depends how you approach it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's tell
You
people
don't do it
this.
like, oh my God, you'll never believe what's going to happen in
Right.
2.5 years.
Right.
You don't do it that way.
Okay. So what do we recommend to
What I recommend is getting stock of yourself, get a family plan together, figure out where you're living. If you're near the water, make an attempt. If you can't, you can't. Then you got to prepare where you're at. Okay, you have to take a stand where you're at.
Because let's face it, let's be practical. Right now, we're economically in a crisis, and houses aren't selling. You know, people can't just say, okay, I'm going to abandon my home, but yet they can't sell their home either.
Well, I think what's going to happen is the government is going to go to an exchange program. That's what I'm talking to my local state senators about that.
Exchange and
all these homes that are in foreclosures, they would make excellent homes for people who have had their home destroyed or decimated by a natural disaster.
That's a great
make
idea.
these homes available.
That's a great idea.
Why not?
Great idea.
There's going to be 3, 4, 5, 600,000 of these homes. Okay, that's one thing you can do. The next thing is you have to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life, because there are many people who will not heed these warnings, and there will be many people who will lose their lives. Do you realize when that earthquake, that 9.0 hit Indonesia, Christmas of 2004 to 2005, more than 285,000 people died in 45 minutes.
Right.
That is a fact. If I never say anything more about a natural disaster, it's real.
But that's something that you really can't prepare for with something like that of that magnitude. It doesn't matter what amount of preparation you have.
Agreed. But if you're sensitive to the times and things that are going on, you're going to be careful of where you are at any one given point in time.
Do you believe our galactic neighbors will be able to not only reveal themselves pretty quickly, because I'm hearing that and I'm getting that they are going to come?
Yes, there's going to be a huge interplay between UFOs, ETs, personal contacts, and I believe there'll be a big scenario called a liftoff. Rapture, if you will. I call it more like a liftoff. I guess you could call it a rescue, because it's happened time and time and time and time again. It's not the first time Planet X has come back. Nibiru's, not Nibiru, but Wormwood has come back. It's not the first time that there's been intervention. It's not the last time it's going to happen. But this time, we have 6.75 billion people on this planet, and about 60% live along the oceans.
What is your opinion of interior Earth, Agatha? That there is a civilization living in there?
No.
You don't see it.
No.
You don't go with that.
No. It's great literature. It's exciting reading. It's stuff legends are built upon. And I think the Earth is just basically what modern day archaeology and
yet we have, our government have bunkers in interior Earth.
Yes.
They're pretty far down in there.
Most governments do. Most governments have had them now for the last 10 years. Most governments
longer.
have known about this for the last 25 years.
I just need to take a quick break just for a second and tell my listeners that next week my guest will be seer, author, and spontaneous channeler Jillian Macbeth Lawson. Being human is, we are relating to this, being human is a hard job, and every day we're asked to choose a higher path or a portal of learning by our every action and reaction. As we get, here we go with the 2012 thing, Dr. Ann, as we get closer to the time door of 2012, a multiverse will change us, not universe, a multiverse will challenge us to become the humans we were originally designed to be. Be sure to join us next week. That's Thursday, October 2nd, and learn how to activate your quantum awakening. A little different spin on what we're talking about tonight, but let's kind of, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's talk about, leave on a positive note here and talk about a little bit more about what we can do, and we started doing that. And what do you see? Is there hope? Is there a chance that, as you said, that maybe this will not happen to the degree that it's being prophesized?
All right, let's put it this way. Anything can change. By the way, the only constant in the universe is one word, change. That's the only constant we know of in the universe. Now, yes, it could be a little bit worse or not as bad as described in our book. We hope it's the latter. We hope that it's not going to be as bad as it could be. But even if it's a little bit bad, if this weather continues like it is and the storm patterns ravaging the planet, and if this thing called global warming, which is another show, Louise.
I know, that's something altogether. We've
if
a lot
it
of
continues, we could find ourselves not only in serious, dire straits, but quite near collapse.
Do you see the government, even if it's the 11th hour, do you see them finally saying, okay, everybody out of the pool, here's what's going on here?
Yes, I think they will not let the public down. At least I believe that the United States government will do the right thing. See, I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I see lots of problems that need.
Oh no, because they're going to go too. I mean, they have to be prepared, and they have families as well.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And many of them are prepared. Listen, the rich are going to make out very well on it.
Yeah.
And this is not class warfare. I'm just saying, if you have enough money to prepare, you'll already have your own little bunker quietly. You'll have your foodstuffs. You know, you're going to have this. You're going to be out in the middle of nowhere. You're going to have protection. I worry about the average common man, of which I am one.
And I am one as well.
All right. What we need to do is take stock of who we are. This is no time to panic. This is no time to get depressed. This is no time to hoard things, but it's time to prepare, take stock, and read about and learn about. The Internet is rich with information.
So you believe
so rich you could spend day and night and not pull down all the information that you need to learn about.
So you believe the planet will be inhabitable?
Yes.
It just will have
It'll be
peripheral
changes. It's going to be rough. It'll be like starting out all over again if it gets bad. Listen. Let's say we just have one earthquake, but it's big on the West Coast. We lose San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. If that happens, it's over. The game is over.
Okay.
We could not afford to rebuild even one of those cities. Did we rebuild New Orleans?
Exactly. That's a very good point.
Okay. So what I'm saying is these major cities better have really, really good emergency plan operations.
Do you think on some people they're passing it down, they're giving that information, those that are in the know, we've got 2 minutes left here, those in the know, are they passing it down to lower level government?
Yes. Yeah, I believe it's already beginning to filter itself down, but right now we're so preoccupied with this
the economy
and this
election
problem with the stocks and the credit issues that we're being distracted. But it's good for them because then they don't have to talk about anything else.
Dr. Rand, our time is up. I knew this was going to happen. I would like to invite you back after the first of the year. And
I graciously accept.
We will talk about this some more because especially after the election, we're going to see what...
Oh, won't it be fun to talk about it then?
It will. And, you know, there's also some prophetic things about some sightings coming up pretty soon, some massive sightings. It's going to be interesting to see if they do or do not happen. So.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you so much for this
Well,
opportunity.
thank you. you. And give a shout out again one more time about how to get your book.
Yes, sir. You can get a book by ordering it at 1-800-247-6553. 1-800-247-6553. Our website is www.returntoplanetex.com. It's in all the bookstores, Amazon.com, religious stores. It's all over the place. You can, and if you want me to do a book signing, tell your bookstore, and I'll come and do a book signing for you.
Fabulous, fabulous book.
Thank
I
you.
highly recommend it. Thank you so much, Dr. Rand, and I'm going to have you on after the first of the year.
Okay.
And thank you for what you're doing and the information you're giving out to us, and hopefully I can get my family to listen.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye, Louise.
Thank you. And I also want to thank my listeners for listening to Now That's What I'm Talking About. Good night, everybody. Who better to shed some light on this subject? Is it a mystical prophecy, or could it possibly be a cataclysmic reality that's knocking at our earthly door? Let's find out. Welcome, Dr. Rand.
Good evening, good afternoon, like your opening thing. Hello, America.
Hi, it's so nice to have you on the show. And boy, Jason, we've got a whole hour power-packed, so let's get going.
Well, I did a little research on you, young lady.
You did.
And you asked some pretty succinct questions, so I'm ready.
Okay, let's get started.
Right.
But before we sink our teeth into the viability of Planet X, let's talk about some of your background. How did you go from having a successful career in the music industry to morphing your total focus on Planet X?
Well, the transition didn't come easy. I do miss terribly the music industry, but it's changed so much during the years that I was in it. But I've never really been totally out of this Planet X realm that I find myself at the moment. My whole experience began as a trial contactee at age 11 in the wilds of Canada, where my life was saved by an extraterrestrial craft, what we would call a flying saucer type shaped craft. And ever since that event and being on the ship and the things that they showed me about these present end times right now had cast me on that journey from early childhood. And interestingly enough, I tell you what, let me just let the story unfold.
There you go.
I kind of know what you're going to want to, and if I go too far, you rein me in.
You go right ahead, Jay. Take off.
Go. Let's
go.
Is your seatbelt buckled, everybody?
Yep, we're ready. We're ready.
Or not, just in case.
We're ready.
Right, okay. When I was on the ship as a child, I was on there for about 5.5 hours. I was a guest. I was not abducted. You know, no funny business. It was intellectual. It was spiritual. It was physical. They were very humanoid.
It was not traumatic, in other words.
No. It just saved my life. And I was paired up with a child about my own age, an E.T. His name was Elan, A-A-L-O-N, Elan. And although he was like, I was 11, although he was like 11 and a half, 12 himself, he was far more advanced for his age than I was. And I knew it, and I recognized it instantly, because he was the one who taught me in less than 15 minutes. He was able to communicate with me how to participate in the art of what they call telemetrics, telecommunication, metrics, mental. And I began to learn the art of speaking through mental telepathy. So from that point forward, I realized I was not in any danger whatsoever. In fact, it saved my life. And at the end of being on the ship, which was about a 5.5 hour run, I was taken to a small classroom. And Elan and I sat in these big comfy leather, what felt and looked and smelled like leather. Believe me, I don't know what it was, but it was nice. We saw across large screens in a 180-degree arc, we saw a series, like a big slideshow. I'm sure you've been to a slideshow.
For sure.
Jump. The slides jump left to right and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was basically shown the formation of the solar system, where we were in the universe, how our solar system works. It was a classroom, preparing me and setting me up to find out if I wanted to take on the mission when I was older, like I am now. We don't discuss age necessarily, but I'm over 60. Let's put it that way. Okay, what it was showing me what the end times would look like from the future, a future that hadn't yet happened. Or the question was, maybe it had happened in their reality and dimensional system, and they were able to play it back for me. I think that they have the ability to go forward and backward in time. In fact, that was demonstrated to me on a couple of occasions. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that.
Okay.
So what I saw at the very end was the formation of our solar system, whereby what I interpreted was that there were originally 12 planets, just like Zecharia Sitchin talks about in his 12 planets.
Right, exactly.
Okay. That there were, in fact, 12 planets. There was no asteroid belt. That became a byproduct of a mischief in heaven that I'll tell you about. And there very, very possibly was a small baby star that had been born by our sun. In other words, we had a binary star system in the beginning, not a single star system, binary meaning two. By the way, most large or medium-sized star systems like our sun usually have binary star systems. So about 80% of them do carry two suns. One, a primary sun, just like ours, luminous, in fusion, creating heat, light, radiance, and that type of thing. And then you have smaller ones, either undeveloped, which are called brown dwarfs, or smaller versions of the large star in miniature. They actually have baby suns. It's just like mama and baby, okay?
Okay.
All right, now, we believe that about 4.5 to 5 billion years ago, with these 12 planets and this baby sun, and there were some moons beginning to come together, we have to understand, first of all, Louise, that our solar system's schematic for the way it revolves is that all the planets revolve around our sun in a counterclockwise motion. We think of things that when we read the clock, look at our watch, that type of thing, or traffic flows, it goes in a counterclockwise. Well, our particular solar system doesn't. It flows in a counterclockwise motion. And about 4.5 to 5 billion years ago, a large errant body, probably a huge, almost planet-sized asteroid, or could have been another small planet, flew out from the depths of space right into our solar system. And we believe that it was probably coming just like a bullet out of nowhere. Now we do believe that it was traveling in a counterclockwise motion as it entered our solar system. So it did enter, but when it came in, it started mixing, and we believe that this errant astronomical body smashed into a planet, one of the 12 planets called Tiamat, and that planet burst into a big chunks and debris, and we think that the Earth may be the remnants of that planet that wasn't totally destroyed. Okay, we think the Earth could be what became of Tiamat, because Tiamat we believe was a fertile planet and had water on it. Another big chunk after it smashed into Tiamat, another big piece of this asteroid-type body smashed into a much larger rocky planet called Marduk. And the word Marduk, incidentally, if you want to Google it up on the internet, has it's a famous word. It has dozens of meanings, most of them dealing with godlike mythical figures from the past and warlords and things of that nature. Marduk. You know, the very words sound ominous, don't they?
They sure do.
Marduk. All right, so a big chunk smashes into Marduk, which pretty much pulverizes that planet. The bulk of it, the bulk of the pieces, the billions and billions of pieces, became our asteroid belt.
Ah, that makes sense, doesn't
which
it?
also rotates counterclockwise along with the rest of it. Now, the asteroid belt is between Jupiter and Mars, okay? Okay, now, another large piece of Marduk, probably the largest single piece that broke off, was cast off into space heading toward the sun. And all the Sumerian legends and all the prophecies and everything called for a new sun